Welcome to Gloria's Gab Live. Today I have with me an author, but he's a retired architect. And I read his book and I fell in love with the book and with you. I feel like I know you. This is Mario Cartaya. Thank you so much for coming and being with us today. And I can't wait to. We've already had a lot of discussions, but this guy is amazing. I need to have you back again because you're so well traveled. But thanks for coming. Before we start, I need to thank South Florida PBS, our sponsor, our show sponsor. Um, if you're not a member, you need to be. You get one of these magazines every month, and it tells you all the great things that are happening. Such a great resource in our community, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they have WXCL, WPBS, and they have allhealthtv.com. So there's a lot of resources available to you through South Florida PBS, and I encourage you to engage in them. So, Mario, I got your book and I read it and I said, oh my gosh, every single person that ever thinks about traveling, going back to where they came from, but also Cuba or wherever, you did such a fantastic job of ferreting out all these crazy things that happened to you. Um, how did you prepare for the trip, first of all?
Well, first of all, Gloria, thank you for inviting me on your show.
Oh,
It's
you
a,
well,
it's a
most welcome.
pleasure to be here.
Oh, well, thank you.
Um, I did not go to Cuba seeking to write a book. I went to Cuba because after assisting uh, President Obama and trying to do the logistics of his rapprochement trip to
Mhm.
the island and being invited to travel with the entourage, I did not want my first time back, 56 years after I left,
Yeah,
the first time back, to be with politics.
right.
I had some things I had to sort out through myself before I could do something like that.
Mm.
Um, a month or so later, I watched them on TV, um, and he spoke to the Cuban people, he spoke to the American people, and he
Right.
started his speech with the beautiful words of Cuban patriot Jose Marti,
Right.
in which he talks about cultivating a white rose to give to his friends, but at the same time cultivating another white rose to give to his enemies. And I sat there and my eyes watered up.
Hmm.
And I turned to my son who was watching it with me and I said, buddy, uh, I have to go back. If an
Yeah.
American president can go back and extend the hand of friendship, try to normalize uh, our attitudes, build on finding that common ground,
Right.
why can't I?
Yeah.
And so my trip was to first try to remember the first 8 years of my life, which during my metamorphosis into an American in 1960, when there were very few Hispanics in Miami at the time, it was easier for me to kind of encapsulate my Cuban life, which wasn't helping me in making friends with little American kids, um, and just concentrate on becoming an American.
Right.
At age 8, all I wanted to do was play baseball, right? Learn the game of football, find out what hamburgers are, hot dogs, all these things.
Hmm.
And my irrelevant past wasn't going to help me. I had to move on. Well, 56 years later, I realized I can't remember the first few years of my life in Cuba. And I went back looking for those years as well. And
And
as
man, you found them.
I found that and much more.
You did. That's what was, I mean, every chapter was a surprise and serendipity. Oh my goodness. Tell it. Well, I, there were so many of them. I don't even know where to begin. What is the most serendipitous moment that happened during that trip? Because I know there are a lot of them, including the pelican, and
Man.
then your relationship to a Castro, the cemetery. Other Okay, so which one is your favorite?
Well, there's so many of them,
I know.
and it's really hard to describe why I was so fortunate to have been given such blessings
Mm,
during that trip. But um, many of them stand out. Of course, the cemetery is. I came to the U.S. I had just turned 9,
right.
and I never saw my grandparents, my uncles, my aunts, which I lived with. Um, I never saw them again.
Saw him again. Yeah.
None of us had seen them. My parents died. My brother died. I'm the first one to go back,
Oh wow.
and I have to honor them in a cemetery plot that I had heard that was in the Cologne cemetery, but I didn't know where. Except Cologne has 1 million people buried in.
Oh geez.
How do you find it? And so uh, I went to speak to the clerk in the cemetery's office, and I gave her my grandfather's name. She went looking for it, came back. I'm sorry, we don't have anything listed on that name.
Mhm.
And then I remembered someone once telling me that it might have been listed under a different name. So I gave the cemetery clerk that name, hoping against hope
Right.
that that would help. She came back and she said, I don't have a name listed under that name, but I do have a name listed with a Marcos Mateo, my grandfather,
Mhm.
under a separate name. And then she goes, come with me. And she walked me to a very private, quiet corner of the office. And she goes, but this man is the son of Fidel Castro, an illegitimate son.
Oh.
Would you like the phone number? I got nothing to lose, right? So she gave me the phone number. I called the man, and he tells me that he was married to this woman who was the cousin of another woman who married my uncle, and that he had met me when we were both little kids. It was crazy.
So he knew you.
He knew me. And so then I said, can you give me the address, please? And he said, well, I can't do that for you because I divorced my wife 10 years ago and
Oh,
we haven't spoken to each other in 10 years. To which I responded, wow, I think that divorces are as messy in Havana as they
here,
are
here.
in Miami. And he cracked up laughing. He goes, yeah, they are. But he said, I'm going to call my daughter who lives in Cologne, Germany, for her to call her mother back in Havana, for her to then reach out to you with the address. She knows where it is. It was her family that buried your family.
Oh wow.
And so 20 minutes later, she's on the phone with the address.
What?
If it wasn't for this
It
Castro,
went to
I would have never
Germany
found
and
it.
it went to
He called his daughter living in Germany to then call his
the
wife
ex-wife.
living in Havana because he hadn't spoken to her in 10 years,
Oh
to
my
his wife.
goodness. Oh my
And
goodness.
that's how I got the address.
Yeah.
So that was kind of an interesting one. And with that, I was able to finally grieve kneeling at the foot of their cemetery
Yeah.
for the first time in 56 years.
Wow. That was a great one. And you went to your boyhood home.
Yeah.
Oh, and when wait, you gotta listen to this one. He goes around in your baseball cap. Almendares, that was it?
Almendares, right?
Yeah. And then what was the other name? The sugar
The Cuban sugar
Cuba
canes.
sugar. Yeah. So he's going around with this hat, and finally somebody recognized
Yeah,
that
this old man.
an old man
Yeah.
that you made his day.
I was walking on the Paseo del Prado,
Uh,
ending a beautiful day of walking all over Havana,
right.
trying to um, get in touch
Mhm.
with my heritage,
Right.
right? My cultural heritage. And as I'm walking down the Paseo del Prado, the sun is setting, beautiful afternoon. I hear somebody yell, Almendares, the cap that I've been wearing for 3 days, and only one other person had recognized. This is from the pre-Castro
Right.
time, right? And so I turn and I walk towards the sound of the voice, and I see this very old man and sitting there. And I said, yes, it is Almendares. And we began talking about the Almendares team, the players, where they batted in the lineup. I'm a
No
big baseball
way.
fan, right?
Yeah,
And then, of
he was
course,
big time fan.
and then the talk shifted to the Havana Sugar Kings, which I went to the game in which they beat the Minneapolis
This,
Timberwolves in the AAA championship game.
this is the one that you got your dad got in trouble because
No,
he
no,
took.
that's
That
the
was a
game
different
that we
game.
went to.
Oh, okay.
And I sat there and watched as the AAA Havana team
Wow.
won the AAA championship,
Uh huh.
right? And so we have this great conversation
Yeah.
going, and then he thanked me. He goes, Mario, I haven't talked about this in about 30 years. And then he said something that was, he turned serious, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, you know, I come here every day and I sit in this bench
Yeah.
because my wife passed away 2 years ago. My sons, they all left for Miami. I haven't seen them in about 20 years, and I'm alone. So every day, he said, I come here and I reminisce of them playing in front of me while people like you walk down the Paseo del Prado. You made my day.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
we bonded in the most beautiful way.
yeah.
And he got up. He needed help to get up. He was
Yeah.
probably in his 90s.
Oh, wow.
And I gave him a big hug. And it was just a beautiful moment
He made
of realizing that for every person who leaves and comes to the U.S. like me
Mhm.
and looks back and misses the family they left behind, well, there's a family there that also misses those people who leave.
Yeah.
We have much more in common, the island Cuban and the Cuban of the diaspora
Uh-huh.
have a lot more in common than I ever thought we did.
Ye-
We're both victims of the same failed revolution.
And you in your book you talk about the entrepreneurial spirit that's kind of evolving there, and you talked about an accountant that was at a
Pedro,
Pedro at a bar at 3 o'clock in the morning. You go, what are you doing here?
you need to know that I went with two buddies,
Oh yeah, you went
uh,
with George.
with George and Jose.
Jose, right?
And originally I was going to go alone.
uh,
My buddy says, you can't go alone. You know, you need someone there with you. And then the third guy says, you guys are going to have
I'm going
coming
to.
with you. And so we finally had an arrangement where during the day, my buddies belonged to me because I had a lot to learn
Right.
about me,
Mhm.
about my past, my childhood, what made me me.
Mhm.
And they knew it. But at night, I belonged to them,
Oh, I see.
which they like to party.
Yeah.
But it was perfect for me because the days were so emotional
Right.
with all these serendipitous moments.
Hmm.
And at night, we were able to toast to every wonderful thing that happened to me, try to understand it, talk about it, come to grips with what it meant. So it was perfect.
Hmm.
So one night, we end up at this club. It's a private club. And I walk in, and everyone is spending $7. Now, this is 2016.
It's a lot of money for them.
Very different
Mhm.
Cuba in 2016. And they're all buying $7 drinks. So I began to approach them. How can you afford to buy a $7 drink of rum?
Mhm.
And they all began telling me, well, I own this new Paladar, which is a restaurant, or I own a new bed and breakfast, or I own a new shop. All these people had created private businesses,
Mhm.
and they were there celebrating their new fortunes,
Mhm.
right? By 3 in the morning, I lost all my inhibitions. There was a gentleman, a kid, probably in his 30s, who was seated towards the end of the bar,
Right.
and everybody kept coming up to him all night. I'm thinking this guy owns the place, but then I'm thinking, could he be government? You know, watching
yeah.
who comes in here. But at that time, after way too many glasses of rum, I approached him and I asked him, "Do you own this place?" And he said, "No." And then he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I am not government. I'm just a Cuban who's here from Miami, and I want to learn your reality. I'm trying to learn who I am by learning who you are."
Yeah.
And then he said to me, "Good. I'm not government either. I'm a new accountant." I said, "Well, that's interesting because all night I've seen people coming up to you and saying hello. How come you know everybody?" He goes, I come here at least once or twice a week to see who's paying $7 for a glass of rum. Because if you do, you have the dispensable income to do that. You probably own a business, a new business. And I come here to offer these people my services as an accountant.
There you
He
go.
was networking
He was
at 3 in the
networking.
morning. And I told him, in you lies the future of the country. You're an entrepreneur who is
For
going to
sure.
make your life better by your hard work. And you're meeting all these people who are doing exactly the same thing. And
Yeah.
that spirit is in you if you're here at 3 in the morning on a weekday networking. And he laughed and he bought me a drink. Not that I needed another one, but he
Yeah,
did.
right. Yeah, right. 'Cause
It was a
obviously,
wonderful experience of hope.
yeah.
I never thought that that hope that I felt that
Mhm.
night for my original homeland
Yeah.
would ever end up in what would happen years later.
And that was one of the things I took away from the book too, that, oh my goodness, you
Yeah.
know, there things are changing. Another generation is coming along and, you know, nothing stays the same. It's going to, it's going to be better. So there is hope.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that was a great story about the
Yeah.
accountant.
It was beautiful.
So, um, are there any other? I know you had your book marked. Is there something in particular that made you um, really appreciate the opportunity to go, but also um, that made you like not happy, but appreciative of your opportunity to do these things?
My
Because
God.
I know you've been all over the world. How many countries have you been to?
97.
97 countries. So it's not like he hadn't been anyplace, but the opportunity to go and then to later go with Obama, that what an interesting trip that must have been as well.
No, I did not go with the honor.
Oh, you didn't. You
I-
didn't. Oh, you just said I
I
want to go on my
couldn't.
own.
Yeah, I
Okay,
could.
got that. I misunderstood that. So, so what was the thing that stands out? Is there anything, because there were so many? What is the thing you took away? One of the things I loved was the pelican at the end when you were talking about
Ah,
your dad.
yeah.
That one killed me. Uh, you're, yeah. So tell me that story if you can do it without crying.
My father and I were extremely close. We were more than father, son. We were best friends. Um, and while I was there, every day, I would think of what I was going through and always in the back of my mind think, what would my dad have said of
Mhm.
me coming back to the country that he was forced to leave?
Mm.
We did not leave because we were looking for food. We did not leave because we were looking for work. We left in 1960 because my dad could not comply with the new government's demands. My father, an accountant,
Mhm.
his clients were all Americans. And when he would not participate or help the government in their attempt to nationalize all of my father's clients' properties
Mhm.
in the country, he was detained. And during that detention, he was warned that his future in Cuba was no longer guaranteed, that he should leave before
Oh,
something
wow.
bad would occur to him.
Oh.
And we left.
Mm.
And so now I'm back. 56 years later, mind you, I'm back. And even though I knew that uh, I had to do this,
Yeah.
I had to find out who I was. In the end, what I find out is that what I got back is not who I was. What I got back from my trip is who I am.
Hmm.
Because all those memories that I had locked away so securely in my protective subconscious vault
Hmm.
had always been a part of me.
Yeah.
And it's a reason who I am. Even though I couldn't remember them, they were still there.
Yeah.
They were still part of who I became and part of who I am. So at the end of the book, I'm done with a week of nothing but incredible emotions, the
Yeah.
high and the low, and but all of them are beautiful
Hmm.
because it's all leading me towards this conclusion, right? And we decide we're going to take the last day, my two buddies and me, and we're going to go to Varadero Beach
You're going to be a tourist.
and just be a tourist for
Yeah.
one day,
Yeah.
you know? And my buddy Jose, well, he drank too much, and he was snoring on the beach, and we left him
No.
snoring. And so George and I went for a walk, and we began talking.
Mhm.
And I told George what I just told you.
Right.
And he says, Mario, your father was a good man. And you've told me for years how you two were best friends. I'm
Mhm.
sure that he would have understood your need to come back to, repair the tapestry of your life.
Hmm.
And then I told him how if my dad was there with me, now he would probably tell a story about how he used to always say that if reincarnation was for real, he
Yeah.
would want to come back as a pelican. And George goes, what? I said, yeah, think about it. He used to always say a pelican spends his day at the beach. When he's hungry, he goes flying over the ocean and eats seafood that he used to love. And at night, when he gets tired, he lands on the balconies of the most expensive hotels and condominiums and watches the sunset until the next day to do it all over again.
Right.
And my dad would say, seems like a great way to spend eternity to me. And just as I tell him that story,
Yeah.
George turned pale and he's looking over my shoulder. And there, not 10 feet from me on the water, is one pelican, a single pelican. And he goes, Mario, look behind you. And there's a pelican. I'm not saying that that was my dad,
No.
no.
But it was like,
But
really?
it was like,
Yeah.
yeah. The serendipities,
Yeah.
the incredible occurrences of this trip just kept on giving,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I realized at that moment that what's wrong with me? George is right. My father and I were but one.
Yeah.
We were best friends. We were father's son. He understood me. He would have been proud of me coming to look for who I really am.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I understood it at that moment.
Yeah. But your bond with your dad, I love the story about your sneaking out of the house
Oh,
when you were supposed to be sick, or you were sick,
yeah.
but your mom didn't want you to go, and your mother went off how did you somehow got your mother to go do something, and you two made it off?
The Sugar Cuban Kings.
Oh, that was the Sugar Cuba Gangs.
Right.
Okay.
Cuba's AAA team.
Right.
Right. I used to listen to their ball games in my room every night.
Hmm.
And so here we go. We're in the Little World Series at the time, which is the AAA championship, and we're playing in the Minneapolis Millers
Oh, really?
of
Okay.
of AAA for the championship.
But it's championship, yeah.
And the seventh game is supposed to be played in Minneapolis, but the baseball gods had a better idea. it began to snow in Minneapolis, and snow and snow and snow for days. It wouldn't
Right.
stop.
Right.
So finally, the commissioner of baseball said, "We can't keep going like this. We'll play the game in Havana." And all of a sudden, there's hope.
Right.
The next day, my dad shows up with 2 tickets, and he goes, "Mayito, guess where the game is going to be played?" I said, "Where?" He goes, "Havana." I said, "Are we going?" He goes, "Here. What do you think these are?" And he shows me the tickets. We're going. And the game was like the next day,
Uh-huh.
right? The next morning, I woke up with a fever.
Yeah.
My mother all day put the Vicks vapor rub on
Oh
you,
yeah, I remember.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
with the wool blankets, gave me even the chicken soup, anything. Orange juice. I think I had 10 glasses of orange juice, trying to make me feel better. Nothing worked. My dad came home from work, and right before he entered my room, I heard my mother outside the door telling him, "Don't even think about it. Your son is sick, and you're not taking him in anywhere." So I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to have to just
Listen to it on the radio.
listen to it on the radio.
Yeah.
So my dad comes in, he feels my head, not the most you know, technical way of knowing, but back then in the 50s,
Feels
that
good to
was good
me.
enough. And he realized that my fever has diminished. And
Mhm.
so he asked me the question, "Mayito, do you feel well enough to go to the game?" What do you think I'm going to say?
What? And of course,
I said, "Yes, I feel
on
great,
my
Pop."
deathbed, I'm going.
And just as I'm saying that, my mother made the big mistake. She went into the shower,
Oh, that was it.
and we could hear the sound of the shower, to which my dad gave me his grin, the "we're going to do something really crazy" grin
Yeah,
that I
right.
knew he had. And he goes, "Go get your lucky clothes. Let's go." And so we go down the stairs from our second floor bedroom. My grandfather looks at us, says nothing. We go out the glass door that I once broke with an errant throw, pretending to be Orlando Pena. We get into his 1957 Ford, and off we go to the game. It was a great game.
Did you win?
In the bottom of the ninth inning, with the score tied,
Right.
men on first and second, Daniel Morejon gets a base hit up the middle. There's a play at the plate. Clay, dust, everything everywhere.
Yeah.
And the umpire signals safe. We
Safe.
win.
Oh my goodness.
However, things get crazy after that. Because along with the fireworks, all of the military people that were on the field from earlier in the game, when Fidel Castro came in and did a triumphant tour
Yeah.
of the stadium, they began discharging their firearms into the air.
Crazy.
And my dad threw me down, jumped on top of me to protect me. We didn't leave there until about 1 o'clock in the morning, waiting for
Wow.
all that to die down.
Huh.
By the time that we got home at 2 in the morning, well, that was the time of reckoning. We hoped that my mother was asleep, and my dad opened the door, going like this to me: "Keep it down, don't wake her up." She opened the door, and there in front of us was the very sobering sight of my mother sitting in her rocking chair, rocking herself very aggressively. We were busted.
Oh, you
We were
think?
big time busted. And my dad turned to me and he said, "Mayito, go up to your room." And man, I ran up those stairs. I wanted no part of my mother's wrath. The last thing I remember her saying to my dad as I ran up the stairs was, "If your boy, if your boy catches pneumonia, it's your fault."
Oh my gosh. That's so funny. Well, that was brave of your dad, but
Yeah.
what a fun thing to do, even if it was a little scary at the end.
But I loved
But
them
what a
for that.
great, I
What a
know.
bonding experience.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
and here's the crazy part. Writing the book. 2 years later, writing the book, I go in the internet to make sure that what I remembered was right. That these soldiers were there,
Oh,
that
yeah.
they did fire the guns into the air. It wasn't, I was 8 years old during
Right,
the game,
yeah.
right? I wanted to make sure.
Okay. Well, that's letting us know that our
Okay.
time is
Well,
up.
let me finish this
Okay,
real quick,
sure.
'cause this is fun,
Sure.
right?
No, absolutely.
So, um,
So that was your okay. So there.
I lost my train of
Oh
thought.
my gosh. Stupid phone.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So let me start again. Maybe you can edit this, right?
No.
No,
We just no, it's live.
Okay.
We
All
don't
right. Well, then
care.
forget
We don't
the
care.
edit.
We
I,
don't care.
I go looking in the internet,
Uh-huh.
and I see a video of an Super 8 film that someone took, some station, right
Really?
back then,
Back then?
and I go to watch it, and the camera zooms into the stadium, and it stops at me
Oh.
and my dad.
What?
Yes, that picture is in the book of me and my dad sitting at the game.
Wait a minute.
That came from a video I never knew existed.
Wow. Okay.
Just searching for information
I
to
don't
confirm my
I don't
memories.
remember seeing that. Okay. All right. But you and I are going to look for this later. But oh, is this it?
Nope.
No.
I'll
Okay.
find it for you.
While he's looking for that, thank you again for coming. We need to wrap up. Want to
here.
thank once again.
Right there.
Okay, there you go. Oh, look at this. Can you see it? I don't know.
Can
Yeah.
you zoom into this?
Oh, well, no, just put it closer. Put a camera. There you go. Oh, no, wrong camera. Wrong camera. Wrong camera. That camera.
Well, there it is. You got it.
There you go. Awesome. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
There's my dad and me sitting in that famous Game 7, and that picture is taken off of my internet screen at home.
That is crazy.
How do you
How
like that?
funny. How funny is that?
Who would
Yeah.
have thought it?
Yeah. Well, just one more
One
crazy
more
thing that
great
came out of
coincidence.
writing that book.
Blessed.
You know,
Just
really.
blessed.
So thank you so much for coming. It was such a delight to meet you. And this man has been all over. So maybe you're writing in the book for sure.
Yes,
You
I
have
am.
to come back. But thank you once again to South Florida PBS for sponsoring us. And we'll see you all next week. Thank you for joining us today.